All right, everybody, away we go. Welcome to the call tonight. It is Wednesday, May 1st of 2024, and this is the Profitable Agent Plan. I'm excited to do week number 2 here. So hang on one second because I know I'm going to have to play around with my computer here. Bear with me for 1 second. I'll make sure that's muted. Good. Let's get in front of me what I need to have in front of me. Voila. I do want to show you the website too for Facebook. So as we have people roll in here, I can just reiterate what this class is about for those of you that are new. And those of you that have been here before, Maria, welcome. I know you're new because Kathy told me you were coming. Jordan, good to see you. GVD, as always, as people roll in here, we'll see who comes live. But this is a course in its entirety, and its intent is to give you a wireframe to put together a profitable real estate business, period. And this is my best what to do information for free. I've been doing this for a very long time, and I am telling you, these are the things that my team and I, our brokers, our brokerage, my mastermind coaching members, everybody is taught this wireframe, and we stick to it because we know it is the way to stay profitable, be profitable, and run a successful business. So in order to consume this, I want you to understand that there are ways on the Facebook group now that some of you have been added just now today. There are ways to consume this. Every week I pin the fill in the blank worksheet to the top. This week we're going to talk about goals and filling those in. The Zoom link to come here live, if you're watching this recording, is right here pinned to the top as well. In the featured posts, you should be able to see those under the tab featured as well. I hope you see it the same way I do as the administrator, but everything each week is right there for you. I even give you the little blurb that goes out with the email so you know what the topic is and what I'm thinking and what I'm thinking about goals tonight. We also have the media files, and this has been a little bit of a challenge with Facebook yesterday. In their infinite wisdom, they decided to shut down the ability to run Zoom into your groups. So we'll be working on a workaround, but don't worry because we have done this course now multiple times. And what happens is all the videos are recorded from the past, and you can just go backwards. They should be there sequentially, starting with the most recent one to the past. I think this is week 12 from the last round because it was in between rounds that Facebook changed their API settings, and we'll see what they're going to do forward. My guess is they'll probably allow you to do something with their own proprietary software going forward as they try to conquer the world, right? But all that is back there. Also, all the files. Everything that we use to fill in the blanks each week, that is all back here too. So that's something that you want to pay attention to back there as well. And then if you scroll down far enough, you'll get a copy of the whole, I probably zoomed right by it there, but there is a copy of the whole course back here too, so that you can see that too, right? Let's just find it so I show it to you. There it is, Profitable Agent Plan Topics. You can download that there and you can see this in its entirety. And the reason that we do things like this and we get up above everything like this is that we are trying to make sure what we're doing is giving you a holistic view, right? And I think that's the whole idea, right? Is that you understand that this is a business in its entirety. And a lot of us, what we do is when we see the business, we get very tactical. Especially if you're new coming into the business, all of a sudden you're walking in there and you're just seeing, hey, I want to get this lead and I want to say this script. Those are all just tactics. And without a strategy, they're not going to be good enough, and you're not going to be profitable behaving that way. I know that because I've been doing it a long time and teaching it a long time, and I've made a lot of distinctions about mistakes I've made myself, stopped people from making mistakes. And even with some new clients up in Quebec over the last 4 or 5 months, we have a miraculous turnarounds in profitability simply because people understood for the first time strategy and not just tactics, okay? So that's a little overview for what we have here tonight. What we're going to do is we're going to go through goal setting. And so as the second thing, last week, if you go back in the archives and you look for week 1 video, we talk a lot about the head stuff and really who you have to become a profitable agent. And I think that's important. Let me just, for the sake of argument, let me go back there. I want to show this to you because I think I should talk about this in context to show you how things build upon each other. I'm just going to download this for a second. I want to show you a copy of it. So when I open this up, I want you to see sequentially how we begin. So when we start this, we talk about how to become empowered even before you start. So I, over the years, was highly affected by my introduction and subsequent multiple readings and listening to the audiobook by a guy by the name of Maxwell Maltz, who wrote a book called Psycho-Cybernetics, which loosely translated means mind steering systems. And I loved that because I've always been very much the head stuff guy, but I like things that are practical advice that tell you how to use your subconscious and your theater of the mind to chart the course for yourself. So they're real tools. And it has a lot to do with self-image development. Also, to take an inventory of yourself with a DISC personality profile. Dr. William Moulton Marston's, who invented the lie detector test, also invented something called the DISC personality profile. And that's a really amazing test. I think Tony Robbins gives away a free version still on his site, but you want to find a copy of that somewhere and take that test. It will tell you whether you're dominant, influential, steady, or compliant. Those are things that you really want to know about yourself, because some of those are double-edged swords. They can be pluses and minuses. And in my case, my DISC personality profile, when I took it one time, long ago, I remember it very specifically. I was a plus 11 on the I as an influential person. I was a plus 10 on the D as a dominant person. And I was exactly negative on the C at 11 and negative 10 on the S. So what that told me was, in my default personality type, I was going to be more dominant or influential, and I wasn't going to be steady and as conscientious. And that can be a tremendous weakness as an entrepreneur. So you have to learn how to dial up the parts of your personality to balance it out so that you can become profitable, right? So again, as you hear me talk about this, you can hear me articulate very simply and very clearly how I used all these concepts to become the example for you of the profitable agent, right? And then of course, it's that commitment to constant, never-ending improvement. I say that to all my one-on-one coaching clients, who are all great, wonderful salespeople. They sell enormous amounts of property, but I tell them you must improve as a manager. You come to me all as superstar salespeople screwing up a business because you have this nascent or childlike brain as a manager, and that's because we don't see the world as a strategic thing before we see it as a tactical thing. And that all comes out of Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth, The Entrepreneurial Myth. So everything that I've ever read has found its way into this plan here for 12 steps. And each week, as you see me go along, I'll refer to those things. Tonight, you'll hear me talk about Brian Tracy a lot too, because he had a lot of effect on me early on as I was understanding goal setting and how important it was, and writing things down. And I'll get into that tonight. So that's how we start to build upon each week. And then once that's done, next week, just as a sort of precursor, you say to yourself, okay, I'm ready. I've got this self-image understanding. I'm committed to it. I've set my North Star goal, which we'll set tonight. Now, why me? And we get into early on very core fundamental marketing stuff that is absolutely critical to your profitable success, okay? And then on and on it goes. It's self-explanatory if you read through this. So I suggest you download one of those itineraries or syllabus, and that is in the files section on the Facebook site. You can go there and take a look at that, okay? All right, so let's get it rocking and rolling here. I'm going to start the lecture portion of this. And again, I apologize for the fact that this is a one-sided call, most of the call, so I have to get the material to you. But at the end of it, feel free to ask me questions, not only about this, but about anything. You're here live. You took the time to be here. If you're shy, you can type a question into the chat. I'll be happy to answer it for everybody. There is no such thing as a dumb question. In fact, if you think it's dumb, it's probably exactly the one everybody's thinking about asking. And it's usually a good basic question. I'm a huge believer in Einstein's philosophy of the levels of intelligence, right? He thinks there is bright, brilliant, genius, and simple at the highest level. So I'm all about that simplification. Absolutely try to do it every day, every week, and I just constantly improve in that way. So please keep your questions simple in your head. Don't get yourself intimidated and overworked up in your head. This is all doable by anybody, right? If you have a will to be successful in this business, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be magical. But if you stay inside a strategy and then you learn how to execute the tactics inside that strategy, you will be far more profitable than otherwise. Okay. All right. So let's get going with the slideshow here tonight. Again, like I said, I have to go into a lecture mode, so I can't really see any questions or anything that come to me while I'm doing this. I'll get through it as quickly as I can. I like to keep these absolutely maximum inside an hour. Sometimes they're quicker depending on the material and the questions, but we'll make it succinct and we'll get going. All right. So why are you doing this? This is a question that we ask. You'll see this as the course goes on. But Kathy's here tonight, one of our telemarketers extraordinaire over the years. And we talk about this a lot, that whatever we make an offer for a unique selling proposition package to go out the door to somebody, it's really only so we can begin to dig in deeply with them and figure out why they're doing it. So if it's important for us to ask a seller why they're selling, or a buyer why they're buying, so that they can attach and we can attach to whether or not it's a big enough reason to move through this process, we should also be doing it for ourselves. Why are you doing this? Why do you want to do this? Now, oftentimes you'll hear either the really altruistic reason, which I share in, right? Which is, this is the single largest financial and emotional transaction most people will ever make in a lifetime. So there's a big kick out of helping people go through that. So that's a wonderful thing to do. My mantra is to be a person for others. I learned that in my Jesuit college education, and it really resonated with me. So that in our Griffin brokerage, what we say is that our main mission statement is simple: be a person for others. And what that means is that no matter what situation you're in, think about that, right? And use the resources that, if you were trying to be a person for others in that circumstance, what would you do? So that gets a little bit deep into why. So you have to sit there and get beyond that why as well, and make a human connection, because this is not an easy business. You will deal with people's emotions. You will have to be part psychologist, and probably more part psychologist than the other part realtor, right? So I'll train you to be both, because you'll need to be. But that starts with you. If your why is not big enough, including the monetary. So I talk a lot about qualitative and quantitative when I'm coaching my one-on-one members and all the Griffin agents we have in our network. When I look at that, there's a qualitative part of, for example, going to a house and telling them, oh, you have a beautiful, kitchen, your bathrooms are updated, your wallpaper, your paint, your roof is in good shape. That's all qualitative. But there's a massive quantitative side to this that we always, when we go in, we teach our agents on how to do an analysis and then a net sheet that they walk away with. So there's qualitative and quantitative for the sellers and the buyers. Why not us? So the qualitative part, I teased you about my qualitative part. The why I want to do this is because I get to help people through a very difficult situation emotionally. But the quantitative part is it monetarily. Why am I doing this? Now, before I get into this, I just want to frame quantitative as something that's needs discussion. A lot of agents will just throw around numbers, and they'll put out a weird round number, not as specific, and you'll see me talk about that tonight. We're going to set the North Star tonight. And the North Star in an independent contractor business is called gross revenue. In our business, we refer to it as gross commission income. And that is all of the money that, when a commission is earned on a sale, all of the money that comes into the brokerage. And that's the number we're going to talk about tonight. We're not going to talk about you managing all of your expenses and how you do that. Of course, that's critical, because what you net is all that really matters. But if we don't drive the best gross and talk about how to get there, right, then we're not going to be very profitable. Because if we can't drive that revenue number up, then all of a sudden the expenses are a bigger percentage of a smaller gross. Okay, I said that fast. I'll slow it down. When you set a paltry goal for your gross commission income, and then you start to spend too much money, you can be upside down pretty quickly in this business. And I am telling you, I have coached people that generated $3 million with their mega teams, and they weren't making that much money, versus people that were doing 500,000 who are making as much, if not more money. So the concept of being profitable starts off by driving revenue, absolutely, but at what cost? Okay. So we're going to talk about quantitative tonight. So setting goals is an essential part of building a successful and sustainable real estate business, and a profitable one. So use this worksheet to understand how goal setting works, and then identify specific financial goals, okay? So we're going to start off with goal setting and why it works. Goal setting activates the brain's reward system and motivates action. So you might not really think too much about this in your everyday walking around, but it's a survival instinct too. So if you are looking for the goal of getting food today, right, and getting enough money to buy that food and put it on the table and pay the rent and all that, those are goals. Those are life goals. Those are survival goals. And so it activates the brain's reward system that says, hey, if you go out and work hard today, you're going to get your paycheck. You're going to be able to buy dinner. So you better get off your tail and you better be motivated into action. That's what it means at its base level. If you really wanted to do some study on that, I would highly recommend you go look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's a wonderful, simple triangle. And if somebody mentions it to me at the end of this lecture, I'll bring a sample of it up. I'm a huge fan of that because it gets the mindset for the agent to say, hey, let's remember basically why you're doing this, whether it's a part-time gig in addition to what you do full-time, or you're going to do it full-time. You need to understand that it's very important to have goals to make it work. And of course, a plan to achieve them. So it's critical because that's how we work. So if you just kind of go in this and say, oh, it'll be nice to sell a house and you're done. You're done. That's not a specific goal, okay? Because the brain is wired to focus on specific and measurable goals, making it easier to prioritize and achieve them. So I'll never forget one time, and I say this every time I do this section. I went to a conference in Boston. It was a massive conference. I think it was called the Success Conference or whatever it was, Success Seminar. And they had all these great speakers. And Zig Ziglar, the great Zig Ziglar, who's passed now, many years. Zig was an incredible speaker. And I'll never forget the line he said, why would you ever want to be a wandering generality when you could be a meaningful specific? And I thought that was wonderful. I never forgot that. And so it really speaks to how this works. And I'll get into some Brian Tracy stuff here too. But the brain wants you to be specific. If you go back to week one or highly recommended reading, go get a copy of Psycho-Cybernetics and read Maxwell Maltz's original work too. And really get into why does Maxwell Maltz think it works that way? By the way, for the background of Maxwell Maltz, if you don't know, he was a plastic surgeon in the 40s, 50s or so, originally from Brooklyn. He speaks with a great Brooklyn accent. You can YouTube him too, hear him talking about this stuff. But he would change somebody's face with plastic surgery, and they would have no change in the way they saw themselves. And he thought that was really, fascinating. And so he started to understand that we see the world through this self-image. And oftentimes that doesn't allow us to set specific goals because we say, well, I'm not the type of person that sets specific goals. I'm not the person that can achieve those goals. And that's exactly how you turn the brain's ability off to be successful. So it's very important to understand these basics of how the mind actually works. So specific and measurable goals make it easy to prioritize and achieve them. And so prioritization is a big thing too. That just triggered me as I was thinking. I have a time boxing book next to me. I don't know that I use it exactly that way because a lot of my time is already boxed on my calendar. Whether it be, each week it gets filled up with some of the blank spaces. I know I'm jammed, to the hilt tomorrow with all sorts of stuff that is boxed. So yes, I have time boxing for all sorts of things, right? But there's also that part of me that has a lot of little ticky-tack things to get done in the micro time spaces. So as it comes up, I write it down. And it's stunning how I can achieve so much from that. I look at the checklist from a couple of weeks ago, including buying 2 buildings, right? I mean, those were written goals down that, require me to stay focused on them and keep everybody orchestrated. It's really stunning how powerful, your mind can be. And I don't really worry too much about the resources and how I'm going to do that because I was taught, through these methodologies, don't worry about how you're going to do it. Just start to write them down and make them measurable. And then you'll prioritize things, okay? So setting goals creates a sense of purpose and direction, which wonderfully reduces stress and anxiety and enhances overall well-being. think about it when you have a vacation planned and you have a lot of work to do before then, how all of a sudden you that specific and measurable goal to get rid of that stuff before the vacation comes begins to give you a serious sense of purpose. It gives you deadlines, and you know only what you should do and not what you shouldn't. So that procrastination kind of gets cut off like a piece of fat, and you're right down to the meat of what has to happen. And you begin to, get more hyped in a positive way, like an athletic moment. And the stress comes down and anxiety comes down because you're taking this action and you feel good. And going into that vacation, I was like, whew, I did it. I deserve this vacation. And that's exactly what this means, right? Now, the brain responds positively to clear and achievable goals. And this is what I was saying about that athletic feeling, because it releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter that helps to improve mood, memory, and focus. So as we set that clear goal and make it achievable, don't make something ridiculous. Well, you'll never be able to write that book before vacation, but you will be able to make the outline for the book, right? So it's clear and it's achievable. And as you're doing it, there's a slow drip of this dopamine that's going through your head, and it's keeping you in a positive mood. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. And all of a sudden you're sharper because of it. So you can recall, all right, I remember that resource. I'm going to put it here in this one. And you're really focused and saying, okay, time's ticking down, but I'm on this. I'm out ahead of this, right? And I see this with my kids. I have 5 kids, and 3 of them are still in college. One's just wrapping up this week, and she's graduating. And then we have 2 more, and they're all 3 of them are either giving presentations or they're preparing for what they do, and they're out ahead of it because I tell them you got to set clear and achievable goals to be out ahead of this, so that when the test comes, you're not so mired in stress and anxiety that you can't remember anything, right? So again, all of this is how the brain works. And by breaking down large goals into smaller and more manageable steps, the brain is better equipped to achieve them. That's why I just told you about the time boxing. And not just the time boxing, but I also always have a yellow legal pad. And sometimes I'll just have a massive dump to get all the stuff out of my head. And there's something extremely magical about taking it, and I call it capturing fireflies into the jar, right? Because it's like when your brain synapses fire and you're like, that's that thing I was thinking of. You got to pull it through your arm and down through the pen and onto paper and capture it in that firefly jar. And so whether or not you end up prioritizing those right in that moment doesn't matter. It's like, get it all out. Then you can see it clearly out in front of you and not up in your brain with all this other activity that's, confusing with all the distractions we have. And take it from a coach, I've never seen a day and an age where people have been so unbelievably distracted, because I do one-on-one coaching with people that have an appointment with me 30 minutes a week, that they have to be there unless there's some extraordinary thing, or they have to give me the courtesy of saying, hey, can we push this out or we can change it? But they're there. But if you ask them to come to a group call these days, there's so much going on that I actually have to now send text to them, my own clients, text, emails that are timely within the hour to try to get them to help themselves. So if we can break things down into smaller, more manageable steps and understand why we're coming on certain calls and what we're trying to achieve, we're just better equipped to not melt down and have the lizard part of our brain, the lowest functioning part, which just wants to eat and sleep, right? And survive for that matter. We break it down and so that we can thrive above that. But if you don't, and you get so much going on, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people and they're just huffing and puffing on the other end of the phone, and they're sort of, I don't know how I'm going to do all this, right? And I'm like, well, stop. What's the most important thing that has to get done? And Brian Tracy wrote a fabulous book called Eat That Frog, at least from a title alone standpoint, as well as his book Goals. And a lot of that, is featured in this next section, right? So visualizing the end result of a goal helps the brain to create a roadmap for achieving it and provides a sense of clarity and focus again. So when we set the financial goal tonight for you and you really get crooked and specific with this thing, what's going to happen is, I said this earlier on the call, you don't need to know the direct road that's going to go there. You might think you do, and here I am giving you the best road mapped out plan I can with 12 steps, but you're still going to have to, not worry about exactly what you know today and what you don't know or what it's going to cost you and all that. It's just, all that's interference with simply setting the goal and then letting your brain and your mind develop how we're going to get there. Because your subconscious mind is so unbelievably powerful. It is more resourceful than you think if you let it go to work for you. But again, Maltz in his work calls it the equivalent of a guided missile. Tonight, we're going to set the place where we want the missile to land quantitatively. And we're going to launch ourselves like a missile towards that goal. But of course, what's going to happen? The wind's going to blow, right? It's going to rain. It's going to snow. It's going to all of a sudden be too hot, too cold. So all these things are going to affect the pathway to achieving that goal and blow us off course. But see, a guided missile, aka your subconscious brain, doesn't really care as long as it can still see that goal. So a guided missile makes a small adjustment, right? That's what it does. So it just makes an adjustment when it's blown off course constantly. So the path for a guided missile, a high-tech piece of machinery, is not a straight line at all. If you could chart it and watch it, it's all over the place, right? But the corrections are so quick and so micro because of the computer inside that's what's happening. Well, your computer inside is your subconscious mind, and it's stunningly powerful. I know about the law of attraction well enough, but I don't want to patronize the subconscious mind by saying, oh, the law of attraction. If you think about a parking space opening up, it just opens. That's not what I'm talking about. That's a little goofy and patronizing sometimes. This is serious stuff. This says that if you have that personal financial quantitative goal in this business to be profitable, and it starts with a good top line goal, then your mind is going to find, as you listen to coaching from somebody like me or your broker, or you read books or whatever, your mind is going to understand, is that a piece of information that's helping me get closer to that quantitative goal or not? Simple. And you have to trust your mind to be able to figure that out. And you also have to trust yourself. I even said this to one of my clients that I've known, oh gosh, we're going to go way back on this one. Dean and I have known each other, I think, since 1991, okay? And today, 2024, my biggest piece of advice in the conversation we're having was to trust yourself in what you know. So if you don't think this is exactly what we talk about every week, there's an anecdote from several hours ago. It's exactly what I said to him. I said, trust everything we've worked on in this group. Trust your ability to understand how to create a system and apply it to this new thing we're talking about. And again, we're doing something together. So it was really a reminder for both of us to simply do that again and to rely on that, because it's so easy to stop trusting yourself, lose your clarity, lose your focus because, oh, this guy's killing it with this or that gal's doing it. Listen, I know top producers' businesses inside and out. I said this earlier in the call. I'll say it again. I had a client doing $3 million and he was not as profitable as someone doing 500,000. So it's not always the glitter, that you should be chasing. It's a nice, clear goal that has good, profitable steps to it, not just some ego step. Anybody can buy their way to multi-millions of dollars in sales and buy their way, ridiculous amounts of leads or ridiculous amounts of advertising that has nothing to do with a good, clean roadmap. It's sort of like saying, I'm going to drive from here to California, only first I'm going to drive up to, the tip top of Canada. I'm going to go all the way down to Mexico and zigzag my way, right? So that's not what you're looking for to be efficient. Again, I know it's a guided missile getting there, but we don't have to be that far off course if we will trust ourselves. So goal setting requires the use of the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making and planning, which when trained, can improve cognitive function and enhance overall productivity, right? Also, reviewing progress towards goals helps to keep the brain engaged and motivated towards achieving them. So many people have this cognitive distortion that when something goes wrong the first week, all of a sudden they like, oh, this isn't working for me. I'm no good. I'll give you a very specific example in our coaching program and in my own group, and Kathy's on here tonight, and I'm sure she can validate this when I stop the lecture part. If I get a new telemarketer, which we have, Pamela, on our team, we can set the goal that says, hey, we think in this many hours, you should be able to do this much in gross commission as an initiator for that. And these folks work directly with me and directly with my client care manager, Laura. So we all have these goals that are intertwined. But what if we went by a couple of months and we said, you haven't closed a deal yet, Pamela. You haven't closed a deal yet. And 3 months, you still haven't closed a deal yet. And she's saying that to herself. Well, what we would have neglected in getting to that first goal, which is one step in the achievement of the overall financial goal, we would have gone back to the beginning and we would have said, well, wait a minute. How many calls did you make this week? Do we have any recordings of those calls so we can see whether you stuck to the script? Did you make the offer correctly? Did you say it with the right tonality, right? So now we're listening to all these calls like, wow, this is good, but let's coach you up. You need a little tweak here. And we did that with Pamela. I'll use her as an example. Her personal progress in this process helped her identify that she was trying to be too precise and had lost her passion and humanity. And within a week, all of a sudden we make that adjustment. There's tremendous progress. She got a couple of yeses to, commitments to phone calls, phone appointments, et cetera with me. So she made progress immediately towards getting the first goal of the first deal. And she sounded so much more relaxed and motivated and engaged. Not that she wasn't an engaged person, but you could feel all the weight and the pressure until we reviewed the progress, right? So that's an example of you have to see, are we moving there? I just see so many people just give up, oh, that didn't work for me. Well, what do you mean it didn't work for you? You didn't work hard enough to progress personally, or did you achieve those, measure those goals along the way? And this is where the managerial brain that I'm talking about helping you develop versus just the tactical brain. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I just do an open house, and if they come, they come. If they don't, they don't. That's the tactical brain talking, because strategy requires a little bit of thinking and a little bit of work. But as you really think about being strategic, it's all about seeing everything holistically in steps. Now, if I went back, to the page before, what did I say? If you break things down into small, manageable steps, your brain gets activated. So in other words, if we talk about the process of conversion, right, converting a lead to a prospect, we say, okay, let's take context. What's the context? All right, we decide to go to expireds. Wonderful. What's the unique selling proposition we're going to offer them? Okay, we're going to offer the package that we'll talk about next week. We're going to offer the package of information, pictures and details, market update, and a plan. Wonderful. Check, right? Do you know how to put that together? Yes, check. Do you know how to articulate each piece of it? No, let's work on it. Okay, let's talk about each component. That's breaking things down into manageable steps even before you go and do it. You walk and act as if it's happening and you're talking about it, and then you start to see it in your mind. You can go back to last week where we talk about the theater of the mind, seeing all the steps that go from being able to pick up the phone, get somebody on there, articulate everything in the beats, get the yes, and then get the appointment either on that phone call or when they're ready or whatever, and see it and act as if, oh, I'm seeing myself doing it. I'm talking to Sally. I say this. She says yes. I say this. She says yes. I get the appointment. Danny gets the appointment. We get this. Laura gets it. Yes, 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 check. Right? You have to really see all those micro steps, and you can't see that unless you get up above the whole business and look down at it as a series of steps. Because when you're down in it, okay, what am I doing today? I'm going to the open house, okay? And do I have my sheets? And like that's tactically in the moment. But why are we doing the open house strategically? Well, number one, the seller needs to see our proactive marketing that we promised. So now we're going to lead capture everybody at the door so we can show the seller, all these people came, nobody's writing an offer week after week, we need a price reduction. Secondly, it doubles down as a strategy for us to grab leads and see if we can convert them right in the house by giving our unique selling proposition package, and on I go, right? And again, I'm talking fast because I just want you to understand it's seeing that as a strategy and then executing it keeps me rooted in why am I doing this way, right? Not just a whimsical tactic, but I got to be steady. I got to remember that when it didn't work and I got nobody for a couple of weeks in a row in the winter at Dern Street in Boston, nobody came. I didn't fret it. I did my emails on my phone. I told the seller, unfortunately, a little quiet, winter's here, but don't worry. What's he going to say? Stop open housing my place that I can't wait to sell? So it's that progress that I understood. There will be days when the guided missile gets blown completely off course, but I don't panic and I adjust and I see the progress for what it is, right? So celebrating small wins along the way helps to reinforce positive behavior, leading to a more significant sense of achievement and satisfaction. I love it sometimes when I'm doing an open house and just about when I think nobody's going to come, with about 10 minutes left, somebody shows up. And I have a good conversation. In some cases, I get to even convert them to a potential prospect. That's an example of a small win, and I celebrate it, and I feel good about it. I know no check, no offer, but I don't boo-hoo. I say good progress, because I got to go through a whole bunch of it's not for me's to find the it's for me. Goal setting can lead to the development of new habits and skills, which can lead to long-term professional and personal growth, right? So doing these open houses over and over and over again keeps me in there as a habit, and I start to freak out if they're not, ready for me each weekend, that I'm not doing something personally. And by the way, I'm not some lunatic that always works. We have a family First Holy Communion on Saturday. I'm absolutely, not going to be available for anybody. I mean, I might pick up the phone and answer a question, but I will not be in anybody's open houses that day. It is a personal day. Last week, we had closed a bunch of deals or got a bunch of things, under agreement that we're, closing. I geared way down. I did less. So this is a formula that allows you to really be consistent across the year, but also to take some time for yourself too, right? Okay, so now after all of that, we get into this concept of gross commission and all this kind of stuff, right? So this is a formula. Probably want to take your phone and just take a picture of this, right? This is a good formula to have, and just be able to use it. And by the way, it is in what I pinned up today in the Facebook group. You can go download the fill in the blank. There's a PDF for you there. I actually think I put up the wrong form. It's a PowerPoint, but you get the point. You can use that here. So I would like to have a volunteer. If we have somebody who would like to volunteer, I got Hunter, I got Jordan, a couple of ringers here. So I wouldn't mind if one of you stepped forward with me, Hunter or Jordan, because I know you guys are both Griffin agents, and it would be good to maybe use you as the guinea pig here to help you set this. Either one of you guys want to step forward?
Jump in there, Hunter.
Yeah, I can step forward.
Cool. All right. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to pick a number to earn gross commission. This is not after splits and all that, Hunter, right? This is before all that. You're thinking like a business person, right? This is the top line. What is the gross commission income you would like to shoot for? What's your North Star goal? I'm going to write down some math here.
For this year, I would like to do 120,000.
Okay, good. Now make it a crooked number. The brain doesn't like that kind of a general 120. It likes something like 121,672. Okay, we get really weird and crooked because that really activates the brain more, right? So now I would like to sell homes at an average price of, Grant, any idea what that median price is in Scottsdale or the general Scottsdale area where Hunter would be going? Because that would be helpful.
476.
Okay.
$563. Yeah.
476, 563, a beautiful crooked number there. That's the median price. Okay. And that's your goal as a profitable agent, Hunter. You want to try to sell those and above, right? That's what we're programming the subconscious mind to focus on, because it's far better to be profitable per deal than just, occasional deals. It doesn't mean you won't do some under that. But when we're being intentional about trying to achieve the 121,672, we want to focus on the 476,563 as the target, right? Yes. So the average commission rate is, what do you think it is, Hunter? You tell me the number. What do you think the average commission rate is you'll be able to achieve?
3%.
Okay, so we'll go 0.03. So there we go. And then here's what we're going to do. So we're going to take number 2. And we are going to do the math. 476, 563 times 0.03 gives us a number of 14,000. Okay, let me just put this down. 14,296.89. I'm going to go down to the decimals. Okay, so there we go. So that is your average commission target. Okay, and by the way, Grant, I don't know if a Hunter or Mark have been able to download yet a copy of the GCI goal setter, okay? But that's something you want to bring up with me, because this is the stuff Hunter would plug in there, right? So now when we look at that,
Yep.
I will close X number of transactions, right? So we're going to divide answer number one. Let me just see this. Let me see. What do we get? So number one by what we just did there, number four. So we're going to take 121, 672, and we're going to divide it by that average commission, 14, 296.89. Okay. That's going to give you an unbelievably reasonable target amount of deals. You would only have to do 8.5 deals to achieve that gross in an entire year. Okay. It's an extremely reasonable goal. This is why I'm saying achievable goals. So this becomes achievable, right? So now we have that. So the next part of it is kind of arbitrary, but what I would say is I would want you to think at least 60-40. So you want to go 60% sellers, right? So we're going to go 0.6 times 8.5, and then we're going to go 0.4 times 8.5. The math will get a little funky here, but 8.5 times 0.6 is 5. So we'll round that to 5. 5 sellers.
Plus 6%. Oh. Wow. Danny, I think we lost your audio.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Danny.
Yeah, we can't hear you. Nope, still can't hear you.
Can you hear me yet?
Yep, now we can.
Hang on.
Yep.
Bear with me.
Nope.
Yeah, you got me. Am I back?
Yes.
back?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so sorry about that. Don't know what happened. So, Hunter, does that sound achievable?
100%.
Exactly, right? 100%, 110%, right? Or if we're getting really weird tonight, 111.5%, right? So that's the idea, though, is that when you do goal setting like this, all of a sudden things sound reasonable. And with a strategy, they are. And so if you can imagine yourself executing that strategy over the course of 12 months, it sounds unbelievably achievable, right? Because you're like, how the heck could I not do like at least a deal, a little bit more than every other month, right? Now that's where we start to, because you're a Griffin agent, or soon to be, we really dig in there and say, okay, write this down into the goal sheet. The next act is the act of prospecting. The minute Grant gets in a listing, you jump in it, you do your open houses, trying to create one of those 8 people, right? Or you work in your sphere of influence, right? And if you have any past clients, we're looking for this prospect anywhere, because all we need is 8 people that have the context to buy or sell a property north of 476,563, and you can get to that gross goal, right? It's exciting. It's exciting. And that's what makes it achievable. And there's your North Star. Now, the idea is, because we have tactical spreadsheets and things for all of our agents, we just pop it in there, and now you're looking at it. And after each deal, what's cool with the spreadsheet we give you is that it'll give you a variance report. So if you do a deal at 375.63, right, all of a sudden you're looking and go, uh-oh, I'm a little bit behind, and I only got 2.5%. I really got to make it up now. So we have this variance report that says to the brain, just like I just said, like the concept of having that that the guided missile correction. When you look at your spreadsheet and your guide that says, is each deal keeping me profitably on target? and the answer is no, the brain goes to work to make it up the next time. Yeah, but I got an $800,000, and even though it was 2.5%, it blew away the 14%, and now I'm ahead again, right? Because really, you hit one bomb. Let's say you go out and get $1 million property, and you get only, you only get 2.5%, or you even get 2%. Let's say you get $1 million at 2%, you're $20,000. You're nearly $6,000 over the target for that one. So now all of a sudden you have to do less deals, right? It's a fraction in this case, but you're having to do less deals. So that's why we say, even with the achievement of a couple high end deals, your whole business can change just like that, and everything gets easier. Cool?
Yes, thank you, Danny.
You're welcome, Hunter. All right, voila, that's it for me tonight. So I'll go into any kind of Q&A or commentary. If any of my mastermind members, want to say anything about this, from Grant to Paul, any of you, or we have Kathy and Shauna in here, client care manager extraordinaire and telemarketer extraordinaire. If you want to comment on this at all. And fellow masterminder, Roberto, anybody want to comment? Questions? Thoughts?
I just want to comment, Danny.
Sure.
So specifically with the setting that odd number for the gross commission, I was listening to the audiobook Think and Grow Rich, and
Yes.
Napoleon Hill talks about setting that number, and then what are you gonna do to actually meet that number?
Right.
Or
The plan to
achieve that
achieve it.
goal?
He says the plan to achieve it. Right.
Right. So that brought me back to this, because I'm listening to the audio, and then it reminded me of setting this goal from the beginning and what to do to achieve it. So that's my comment.
I think he gets specific about the date upon which you will achieve it too. Right. Yeah.
Yes.
So Hill's stuff is, but again, you see, when you read enough of these books, they vibrate around the same frequency, meaning they vibrate around the same basic concepts that are out there. It's just, are we using them in our plan, right? Are we taking them seriously? That's why, Roberto, when you became a mastermind member, it's like you've got to have that goal sheet set out, because what a fraud I would be if I didn't tell you to do that, when we have all this stuff right here saying go do it. This is what to do. And then you joined me, and it's like, okay, here's how I want you to do it. So it locks you in. And then, like I said, that variance report. So once you have it at the bottom, it's a variance report telling you, okay, you said this. Like for Hunter today, it would be this crooked number. He would have that, he would be able to see, and Grant could get him the average number too, and they could talk about that. So you have a median and an average. If you push towards the average, which is usually higher and sometimes significantly higher because of ultra luxury, you start targeting the average sale, right, at the commission rate. Now all of a sudden, like, everything changes big time, right? So, and it's amazing what it did for me, Roberto, because I made a firm decision. I always wanted to do, the big numbers, but I made a firm decision to do it in a luxury fashion, to do less and get the same number. But I didn't necessarily say I wanted to work less. So all of a sudden what became exciting for me is, well, how do we get more of these big deals where these, big chunks are coming in well above that median and that average, right? And over time, what's happened is it's a regular conversation that we're in and around. Kathy just closed with me a $2 million deal. We're chasing down a 3. Well, we actually have a couple in the that expired with us that were overpriced. We got a $13.5 million. We got a $3 million. We go chasing a 4 and a 3. Those are becoming regular conversations with us, right? We came close to getting another 3 recently. So, it's weird how this just happens. And then all of a sudden, and of course, Kathy's got some stuff we're banging away at 570, 800, and those are great, right? They're fine. And sometimes I cheat a little bit back towards the left of the median because it's a past client or it's a cash flow situation. Wonderful. But over the course of the time, you drop in 1 or 2 of those bombs, it changes everything, right? So good. Okay, what else? Anybody else?
Yeah, Danny, I just wanted to talk about what you said earlier about large goals into manageable steps.
Yes.
And you're more likely to achieve them. And I was thinking of, as a person, fresh out of real estate class, studying for the exam, just breaking it down. For example, I'm going to study X number of hours per day or per week, or I'm going to do 50 test questions a day. As a new agent focusing on prospecting, I will call 10 people this week, or I will text 30 potential prospects this week. And if you break it down into simple goals and simple steps, then it makes it more achievable.
No, there's no doubt. I mean, look, I talked to Marty, my son, about that too, right? So I always say, Marty, you're trying to go from zero to hero. It doesn't work like that. There's all steps in between. I mean, in his mind, he's a very good tactical, executor of his study plan, right? And he's doing extremely well because of it. But I told him, I said, stop even in your mind playing around with that. It's just a weird way he motivates himself. But I said, it's kind of exhausting your energy source by saying, well, if I'm here, then I'll be here. I said, that's a cognitive distortion. And that's something to be aware of too, Kath, is the reason we go from zero to too much and then we shut down is because of a cognitive distortion, right? We instead of just seeing the first couple of steps in front of us, and that's hard though, if you're tactical, because if you're tactical, you start to see all the steps in front of you and you don't get up above it and say, okay, that's a big thing, but I think, everybody's going to have to go through every stage of this. Let me just get back to stage one and let me get started. And there is something stunning to try this sometimes. Do something new. Like I want to learn how to play chess with the boys this summer, right? None of us have ever learned how to play chess. So I went on YouTube, and one night I was just sitting here alone, and I turned YouTube on. And I started watching, a breakdown of chess, and I had at least a concept for what goes where. Now I'm going to have to watch it 3 or 4 times to get it, and I'm going to have to go buy a chess, board and like actually touch the pieces and move them around, or do it digitally to start. It's just a long road to hoe to learn how to play a game of chess, right? So sometimes even for me in that case, it's overwhelming. But my point was go try to do something like that. So you're always challenging yourself to go through initial steps, right? It's much easier if it's something you want to do versus something you're forcing yourself to do, because then there's the motivation. You have a why you want to learn it, right? So
Sure, absolutely.
Good. What else?
Well, that reminds me of the 10-minute theory, and I don't think that's the name of it, but it's it just accumulates. You apply 10 minutes a day
That's
to
right.
read chess. At the end of the month, you've got how much time put in to learning that. And same with real estate. You absolutely have to put in that training. If it's an hour a day or whatever, you've got so many hours at the end of this term or whatever, however you measure that. And it really builds up your whole knowledge base, which, like you said, empowers you. So,
I think I'm still stunned by the power of time. The concept of compound interest is probably one of the most stunning examples of the power of time. That if you just will sit. Warren Buffett talked about this for years. He said, I can make anybody rich, but they wouldn't have the patience to follow it, right? And it's what blows us up. And so it's definitely that case in business is what we think to ourselves, and we say, look, at the end of the day, if you look back at anything you're stuck with, it is pretty amazing from where you came, right? It's pretty amazing. And when I look back at what we achieved over the last 11 and a half years or so, since I broke away from the other company and said, there's too much noise, this isn't a real system. Like there was a lot of negativity. I look at where we are when we talk about this stuff in the mastermind group, especially. I'm just sort of blown away at what it is. And the irony is, the end result, Shauna, is actually simplification to an extreme. We'll go back to that concept that Einstein has, that first there's bright, then there's brilliant, then there's genius, then there's simple. It's so dang true, right? It really is. Because if you think about what we'll teach next week as a segue here, we'll teach this basic package of information that all of us were using. You've been around this a long time too. We were using these components. We had pictures and details of properties. We had available, at least to us, market stats. We were probably working in an organized way like a plan, but we never got up above it and saw it that way and made it a strategy and put it together in a cohesive fashion. And when you look at it now and you say, okay, now I'm going to write a script for it, then I'm going to write a cover letter for it, it's all going to be consistent. To think that was the achievement is stunning. But if you didn't put the work in, you don't get the reward of knowing this is simple. You don't get rewarded. You don't go through that. I'm almost imagining what it was like when Einstein figured out his theory of relativity, And he probably looked at it and said, oh my God, it was that simple. After all those calculations and that work and that imagining, it's simple, right?
Right.
E equals MC squared. I mean, I still don't know what the hell it means because I'm no scientist, but the point being, energy equals mass times whatever, squared, right? I don't know what that means, but that's a damn simple formula. That's not some long algorithmic algebraic equation that it describes it, right? So I think that's a glaring example of what it means to just spend some time on something, because the simple, wonderful result at the end is yours. You own it and nobody can take it away because you went through the fire to get it, right? So yeah, cool. All right, last call. Anything else? Okay, hearing none. Listen, I appreciate y'all being here live tonight. I love doing this course because it just, gets us all rooted back in the basics, and that's what works. And you can hear my passion every time I talk about it. It's exciting to me. So I hope we can help you do that. Maria, thanks for visiting with us tonight. Hunter, Jordan, Carol, don't know you, but thank you for being here today too. Mercedes, as usual, Pablo, and the rest of the gang that spoke.